2, 1. So what is the items that you should actually kind of review and study before you take on exponential and logarithmic derivatives? Well, in calculus, as you go through, there is definitely quite a correlation with how much knowledge you're coming in with. And of course, that knowledge dates back all the way when you started studying mathematics. And as you go on, especially into high school, you do quite a lot of reviews. But there's a systematic reason why things are covered in a particular order. So from grade 9, 10, 11, and then on to 12. And for anyone who's going to be taking on calculus for exponential and logarithmic derivatives, if you're going to be studying those, which I will be covering in my videos as you kind of go through, I wanted to let you know what you should concentrate on before you even come into the course. So when I run this site and my videos, I always keep in mind in the back a student, maybe like myself when I was in high school, what I would have liked to know before taking on things like calculus or advanced functions or maybe data management or others. And then especially if you're going to be going on into post-secondary and you might revisit these topics. And because of that, so I make a video like this where I basically go over a few items which I believe a student should review before stepping in to calculus and start taking on exponentials and logarithmic derivatives. Sometimes, there might be one particular class dedicated to these topics before you get started, which is common. Now, I have actually covered all of these topics, so I'll show you where you can find them in case you're going to be interested, in refreshing your mind. So one of the early things, of course, is, be very comfortable with exponent laws and the exponent properties that you have. So that is kind of standard procedure. That should have been covered all the way up to grade 9. Now, from that, so from those exponent laws, as you get in, especially into kind of grade 11-ish, you are going to be running into the exponential function. So the parent function looks kind of like this. It's basically some base raised to an exponent. And if you graph it, it either will have an exponential growth or it's going to have an exponential decay. So that's something that you would have covered. And I love covering the transformations for all of these parent functions. And if you have been on my site, you've noticed that I have done a lot of videos from trigonometric functions, right? So sinusoidal functions, transforming them to regular polynomials, or all the parent functions that you run into. So power functions, for instance, absolute functions. So knowing transformations is very helpful because it helps you visualize how these functions look like and how they behave. And then you're comfortable in moving them around. And a student who's capable of doing that has a huge advantage over others who cannot visualize and can't get the intuition behind these functions. So the exponential function is one. I do recommend that you try, the transformations. For exponentials, they're not that difficult. Then what I would say is, definitely run a course, or run a little review for yourself for these logarithmic properties. So they do actually come hand in hand with the exponent laws and properties that I mentioned first. But these ones, because we don't use them as much and they do come a little bit later on for us in high school, they don't stick around as often depending on how much you actually cover them. Even when I did the videos, I kind of have to review these concepts for myself so that I can teach them in a proper way. So here are, quite a lot of these. On the left-hand side, you see the very basic logarithmic properties. So log, base b, of 1 is equal to 0, and so on. And then on the right-hand side, you see, what happens, with the addition and then the subtraction, with an exponent that you have. So those particular properties, very useful to know, and then run a few examples so that you get yourself back into the course of remembering these, because they are utilized and they do help us, especially if you're going to be taking some, future derivatives. Then after this, if you are comfortable with the properties, take a dive into the logarithmic functions. you typically are going to be studying, this particular function that you have. But this function nicely leads in to that, which really is something to do with this Euler's number, okay? So this letter E, which I did introduce, I believe it was in grade 11, so you even have videos for that. I'll show you where you can find all of those as well, okay, in just a moment. So within here, so as you can see, this ln, so natural, okay, kind of log, well, that is nothing else but simply log, where the base is the Euler number, E, right? So we write it like this, but because this is so common, we just simply use ln, okay, pronounced as just as ln, okay, is the one you would have outside with your grass. So those are really the items that I would review. Again, get a little bit of a better grasp of them. They're not that super difficult. Typically, they're covered in your functions or advanced functions courses. Now, if you do want to go over these, and you've stumbled across this video and you're kind of like, okay, you know what, maybe let me give it a go. Certainly, I would encourage you to do that, before you start your calculus, because once you get started, then when you run into these, okay, it's going to be so much easier for you to recall them. So if you actually go on my site, which is 1mjourney.com, so this is the site that you see here. At the time you watch this, I might change this ever so slightly, but I think the organization is going to be more or less the same. You're going to be clicking on the math button, which you see there on top, or you can scroll down. I have another one in here, which is the math, and it will lead you to my foundational math videos page. And very soon I actually will be probably done all of these videos for these foundational items. I wanted to finish by the end of 2024. So I don't know when you're watching this, but hopefully, okay, I'll be done this. I'm planning to be finished all of these. I really have just this calculus course to finish. So I have all of these courses from grade 9, grade, as it continues, grade 10, grade 11. And you'll notice that in grade 11, you have kind of chapters on exponents, okay, there, and then your exponential functions. So that is also your growth and decays. You also have half-life if you wanted to take a look at that. So that is in there. And then you have your logarithmic kind of introduction and logarithmic functions there. So that is something that I would encourage you to see. And as you're looking kind of in the middle, you'll notice there's Euler's number, there's the natural logarithm, there's all the log properties, log transformations. Okay, you see that throughout. Okay, and you also will see that on the exponential side. There's exponential, okay, even the transformations, growth and decay. So if you can run through these, amazing. Or if you've just finished your functions course and you're leading into calculus, then that's awesome. So this particular site that I run really has pretty much everything. Now I repeat the same thing in the advanced functions course. So if you scroll in there, you'll see that there's a review of the exponential functions. There's a little bit more on logarithms, okay, and logarithmic functions there as well. So that is, something kind of useful. That's what I wanted to mention in this video. That is all. So it isn't really about teaching, because I was thinking as I'm setting up the exponential and logarithmic derivative concepts, I thought, why not tell students, what should they kind of brush up on before they jump into, calculus with exponents and logarithms. So I hope that this, little note is useful for you. Okay, so you can, give it a thumbs up. I hope that you also can, subscribe, okay, follow us, and then support the 1 million journey. Okay, we'll see you hopefully in a future video. Bye, everybody. Cheers. Happy studying for calculus.